I am here with my good friend Jay Furman, who is currently running for Congress in the Texas's 28th congressional district. And Jay, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. You got the name right. Furman, retired Navy, and I came back home to find my nation, I came back to my home state after retiring. A little unfortunate event the way I concluded my service. I was a vaccine mandate whistleblower, had to duck out the day before they hammered me on that, and and then came back to the Texas that I thought I knew, and actually looked more familiar to what I just finished serving on some of the worst borders in the world. And I knew then, and I know now the next chapter, and that looks like, and no American, I don't care what your politics are, wants to live that reality of basically an insurgency of people that are bent on destroying us, whether they know it or not. So I started. I began trying to work with an NGO on counter child sex trafficking on the border. That was going to be a documentary. For various reasons, we were not able to go to market with it. Sound of Freedom had a lot of problems too. So I pivoted because I identified the problem as Congress. I think many Americans have identified the problem as Congress, not representing what we all think this is the direction we think we should go. I mean, look at Trump's vote in last November, and said, you know what? We need to increase good guys there and reduce bad guys. I picked the biggest bad guy I could on the border, Henry Cuellar. And he sat on the worst part. Historically, Texans, we all know that part between Laredo and that part of the RGV or Rio Grande Valley is the worst infiltration of guns, money, drugs, and people. And so started focusing on that and threw my hat in for a race there against a 21-year incumbent who's entrenched and now indicted by the DOJ for his shenanigans there that he seems to think are normal. They are, in fact, but he thinks that it's normalized, and we accept that. But we don't. They have for too long, and now they're starting to wake up, and the values of South Texas are very conservative. They match mine, God, family, country. And so I really think this, really the Hispanic population moving to the Republican Party is our future. And it's really a great expression of our greatest power, and that is, we are an immigration nation. This is our secret sauce, but it's been poison pilled by the Biden administration and Obama way before that. And this kind of open border, no borders, globalist sort of reinvention of Western values. So I said no and put my boot down. And nobody from nowhere. I decided to retire to San Antonio. I grew up in Austin, Texas. But San Antonio has always been near and dear, a long time family history in San Antonio and South Texas. Came home, retired here, and ran, and just kind of building the airplane as I was flying it. I was still a reluctant candidate. After my border experience with the not documentary, it was disillusioning, and I worked and served in Congress twice, or not Congress, in DC twice with the U.S. Navy. And part of that was to go to a lot of functions, and I've talked to innumerable lawmakers, and some are good, but many I concluded are drinking out of the same, as we say, feeding out of the same trough. Yeah. And the DC swamp is a cesspool of that, and really, I'm 100% behind the president from start to finish. We need somebody to break China right now. That's the dish, not the country, and. And really not be afraid to turn upside down and shake it loose, because we've given too much money and power, that is we the people, to DC, or we've been, trusting that our lawmakers are doing the nation's business. No, they're doing their business and special interest business. And the Beltway bandits have locked into a status quo establishment compact that's really siphoning money and our power. That's in a nutshell why I'm running. We're currently in redistricting right now. The White House asked, rightly asked Texas, among other states, to try to reshuffle the deck and make the districts more fair. Previously, in the 20 census, they counted illegal aliens, so apportionment was all jacked up. And so in Texas 28, which I'm currently registered in, we lost 2 conservative counties in that. And so we're trying to right some wrongs down here. we'll see where all shakes loose. I mean, you see how the non-Texan Texas Democrats, 56 of them, skin-tailed and
Yeah.
here, we don't really cotton to that here. So I don't think that's going to work out well for them. We'll eventually have this vote and put these districts back where they need to be,
Yeah.
represent actual Texas.
Yeah, and Jay, we were just discussing before coming on the show of where you actually served and why those areas of where you served are so influential on the decision that you made to run for protecting our border and securing it. Would you like to go into detail in that regard?
Yeah, 100%. So I had my career began an aviator. In fact, I began flying Black Hawks with the Texas Army National Guard right after high school, as a high school flight school kid, as we called it. And then after that time for training, I then went and did school while I then served in the Texas National Guard, did border missions, fire missions, drug interdiction, whatever they call on us to do. And after college, then joined the Navy, and that's where I retired from. So I was active duty naval officer, aviator, flew the E-6B around the world. It's our nuclear strategic deterrent airplane that allows us to move the red button anywhere we want, so they can't knock out our launch capability. Mutually assured destruction is still the linchpin that holds our national security. Period. Full stop. It is Reagan's big stick. We have to be able to always answer a credible threat or be able to launch first or retaliatory strike whenever we want to in the nation's interest. We do that so we don't have to. And so that's mutually assured destruction theory, and it needs to be there as the ultimate trump card, no pun intended. So that's the jet I flew, and really equipped me to kind of develop a strategic global perspective. Did other fun things. I served in Asia, afloat, and not flying that jet, but doing strike operations and other such things. And got to drive a ship. I was officer deck underway on a nuclear aircraft carrier. Had fun time doing that. It was crazy. Basically sailing an air wing around the ocean, and that strike group is always there. It's a forward deployed group that stares at basically Mexican sweat stares down Russia, China, and North Korea all the time. Again, letting them know, hey, we're not going anywhere, and we have really important partners in the Asian AOR area operations. So then mid career really got a great taste of the international flavor while in Asia, and decided that, hey, this foreign area officer thing that they have in the Navy looks pretty good. So that's a guy or gal that goes and helps U.S. ambassadors or combatant commanders to understand the region and then to broker with that region in the U.S. interest. That's so FAOs, as we call them, the acronym, is what I did the second half. And to your long build to answer your point, I served in places like Asia. I served in Europe, and it's really those African borders that inform, and truly in contrast to the European borders. But so those African borders are, let's just say, that continent was kind of reconstituted after post-colonialism about 1960. You've got all kinds of contention, right? They didn't have the Westphalian experience, a 30-year war to really iron out the borders. They were handed their colonial borders, and then the people that accepted those kind of just carried on the same klepto governments that originated them. And what began those countries were not natural lines, and natural political markers. When Britain, France, Portugal, Spain sliced up that continent.
Yeah.
It's still no lines changed. The only line that's attempted to change is South Sudan with Sudan. So they have a lot of problems with sovereignty and borders. And one of the tools of warfare there is pushing or scaring populations in and out of countries to implode them from within, and to disconnect people from the land and really make them refugees. but they're really bombs.
Yeah.
They create an incredible burden, and they destabilize a country almost completely. When the UN goes in there, it compounds the problem 1000x.
Yeah.
It's predatory as well. Rubric of trying to do good. It's never done. There's not one peacekeeping mission has ended in the history of the UN when they've gone in and put in peacekeepers. So
Really?
that tells you everything you need to know. They've never accomplished the mission over the over 50-year span of doing that, and it's just a big sucking sound of our money to them under let's feel good, throw money at God's go save the kids. I mean, they're not saving anybody. They're actually causing 1000x inflation in the countries they go. Those people are more impoverished and less secure, and really it secures the place for people to steal from those countries, legitimately. So, anyways. Came back, retired back home. Well, I returned back to DC. I was doing a last tour, and then COVID hit, and I started raising questions. And when they did the vaccine mandate for the military, I raised big questions, and no one wanted to listen to me inside the five-sided building. My white paper turned viral when it got over to Darren Beatty and Revolver.news, and then I. Then Tucker got interested, and talked to him, and wrote another piece, and they weren't budging at that point, and they were going to hammer me for not having the vaccine if I didn't retire on the very day I did. So I did, so I could live to fight another day. A Bible study friend of mine wisely said, "Hey, Jay, you need another fight," because I was very disillusioned. I worn the nation's cloth for 28 years, five-generation military. It really became part of my identity. But I thank God, he had an NGO that fought child sex trafficking, so I got involved in that. And bottom line, I carried home from Africa, that has very contentious borders where they use populations as bombs to home to Texas, and went on the border with an NGO counter child sex trafficking, trying to shoot a documentary, and we. It was astounding. We were one chapter away from a reality no one wanted to experience, and I'd seen that reality. Really when empires fall, it's slow and then it's fast, and so I'm wanting to we stopped just short of the cliff in November when President Trump won, but it's really a pause, and unless we codify what he's doing right now through Congress, and we maintain a significant majority, then which is the mandate of the people right now, and the lines and the congressional districts have to match that. So that's why I'm picking up the mantle to run. In my experience, and at one point I was the senior defense official in Niger for a minute, and that was suffering. The nearby country, Libya's implosion when NATO went in there wrongly. And all their weapons were spewing across the Sahel into other countries that were being used as what we call ungoverned spaces to then launch attacks on America. And so, we had to try to maintain that country's borders and interdict and intercept that problem. So, I mean, it can get really bad really fast. And so, without a border, we're not a country, and citizens aren't safe. And we haven't seen yet how bad it can be. We're getting a sense of it. There are illegals more illegals attacking Americans. A lot are keeping their head down because ICE is being very aggressive, as they should be. But it's not. The problem is, and people understand from a security management standpoint, for 4 years we don't know who came in. We don't actually know how many came in. And there's no database in the world that catalogs all the world's bad guys. It doesn't exist. Yeah. And so when they just had open turnstiles coming in the door, just with a number clicker, sometimes the really bad guys went around the ports of entry, walked in with carpet squares strapped to their feet, so you can't track them. Muling in people and weapons and fentanyl. Which is a weapon of war, by the way. That's not a drug. When you have a street value of 25 cents a pill, you're not trying to make any money. You're trying to break a country. So, I think the cartels, been co-opted by, the Chinese and are getting paid, both of which own the presidential palace in Mexico City. It's a shame. One of our greatest neighbors has turned into one of our greatest not neighbors, unfriendly neighbors, and we need to reverse that. Canada also, unfortunately, has been grabbed by the globalist mind virus as well. But so I'm running for Congress in Texas. We are moving. We're doing redistricting. Our Democrats have run like scared kittens out of state, not to face the problem, and we'll get them back, and we'll get this voted in. It's being shifted under my feet, actually, literally. My home no longer, if this holds, will be in the district I've been running in, 28. Whatever happens, I'm going to represent South Texas. The biggest and the most important point is to increase President Trump's support in the U.S. House. That's number one. And the difficulty passing the big, beautiful bill directly related to our very slim majority in the House to do just that. So that's priority number one. People can't be so attached to their pet issues or their political babies, if you will, and all of which are probably very important and make great arguments for. But in the Navy, I learned a long time ago that 90% done on time is far better than 100% late. And late here means turning this thing to extend the football. I've been using a football analogy. President Trump caught the football on kickoff this past November. And he's running up the field at blazing speed right now. But we have to score on kickoff. Make no mistake. We've got 12 months to the midterms. We have to score on kickoff, and we all have to get around him to get the biggest things across. That's state sovereignty or national sovereignty, which we're a nation state, and that's the border. Okay, that is the economy. We have to shore up all the leaky holes in the economy and get it, buoyant again, and then on the upward rise. And then we, and those are the biggest things, honestly. All the other issues, trans et al., been used to kind of, sucker punch us in the nose so that we're distracted on those other two main lines of attack, which are coming from, two directions, but are converging.
Yeah.
We're, heading to, maybe a great, on our currency is one of the things that's really under attack. So I'm efforting to and will get elected into Congress to do that and add another vote in there that matches South Texas values, Texas values. And because really we're the big domino, gentlemen. People say it all the time, but it's true. We lose Texas, there's going to be a lot that falls behind us. So they are absolutely focusing on us right now, putting all kinds of money into this state to undermine this MAGA revolution. So and they're doing it through cheating, and really that began our conversation. I was cheated out of my election win this last cycle. I lost by just short of 5%. All of that balance of which you could find in what's called Webb County, right on the border. That's Laredo, and that's really the home turf of the incumbent 21-year DOJ indicted Democrat I'm running against. And he's a career criminal. And finally, they caught his hand in the cookie jar. And it was the Biden administration that caught it because it's so dangerous. He was the chairman of that Homeland Security House Appropriations Committee. So he saw everything that was related to our national security. At the same time, he's standing on the fence, holding the wires down and letting the bad in and profiting from it. In many ways, more than just what he was indicted for, it's alleged. So, my name didn't show up on the ballot on the ES&S electronic display system on select individuals. Somebody did this very, very smartly. There was an alternative. I allege there was an alternative ballot in the system that only hit different people, independents and Democrats that they thought were safe votes, but might have switched over. And so they hit enough people. That and classic ballot stuffing is something else I think happened. Just judging from my experience when I officially challenged the election, they did all kinds of stuff. Just in the recount, their behavior was completely obscene. They stole a tally box in the middle of the recount. We just got done recounting the early votes. I look up and it's gone, and I can't find it for like 45 minutes. And it was, off into another office. You're not supposed to break chain of custody. It had not been certified yet, although we'd gotten them all in there. They'd broken off the little locks on it that are codified, and had it in their possession unobserved. And oh, by the way, they insisted doing this entire recount in pencil. Never been seen before. Texas allowed it to happen for some reason. We're infiltrating.
What's your oversight over it? Like your supporters, your workers were able to have oversights and inspect the entire recount process? Did it happen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we did a recount. It's just right after we did the, or right in the middle of it, right between the early vote recount and the actual election day recount, the tally box disappeared and completely invalidated half of it. And
Yeah, and
they
in the
added.
early vote recounts, weren't there 14 ballots that weren't shown on the camera, which is against the standards for a precinct with over 100,000 people? Is that correct?
Say it again. I didn't hear all that.
Yeah. Is it correct that out of the 41 early voting ballots, there were 14 that weren't caught on camera?
Oh, on the actual voting locations?
Yeah, an actual
Yeah.
voting location, not in the recounts.
Yeah, I actually that were not on camera during the voting process of early voting. I actually don't know that little tidbit. I'd love to hear more about where you got that. What did happen camera wise is we caught them shredding unused but certified and signed ballots, which like your
What?
checkbook, you can't throw away. You can't
What?
throw away blank checks to reconcile the system. So they invalidated the entire thing at that point, and that was before we even began the recount. Um,
So then you went to the Fourth Court of Appeals in Texas to appeal that?
yes. Well,
Yeah.
so the fourth court of appeal scenario came of our recount. Whenever you do an official recount court Texas election code, I have the right to copy every ballot that I challenge. Well, based on
Yeah.
all of this, I challenged every ballot, all 66,000 in this county. And so they said, okay, that's fine, but you have to do it on paper, which the law doesn't specify. And you have to, candidate who's on the ballot, be the only one, singular person, to copy every ballot. And oh, by the way, you can't use our copiers that fit these odd shapen 4-inch by 13-inch ballots, double-sided, thick paper. So I mean, I finally had to source, got everything set up a week later, and I'm sitting there copying as fast as I can. I get through 25,000 of them, and they finished the actual recount, which was fraudulent at that point, as I described. But
Yeah.
and so they said, "Oh, you have to stop copying." I said, "No, I don't. This is part of the official recount.
Yeah.
I should be able to do this. We need this for our full forensic investigation," which we had the experts there to do that.
Mhm.
And they said, no, you can't do that. So we said, well, that's not wrong. I mean, not right. For a correct congressional challenge, the first court of venue is Texas' second highest court. That's the Court of Appeals. And for this area, it's the fourth court. They took the matter and then ordered Webb County to allow us to continue to copy ballots. Webb County didn't respond. The fourth court then said, hey, we demand a response from you twice. And they ignored them. 2 months later, they finally hired some silk stocking Austin firm to go and undo that ruling somehow. So that's still a mystery to me. So
that's from Tano Tijerino or
Yeah.
Tijerino.
Yeah,
He's the individual who delayed it.
Right. Yeah. So Tano Tijerino is the Webb County judge. He's the highest elected official in the county. He oversees all elections. He told me that summer in his office to my face, hey, Jay, just so you know, if you lose this election against Henry Cuellar, I'm going to switch parties and run for this office. I said, oh, that's interesting. Thanks. And so, well, I mean, right on time. In December, after Trump's decisive victory everywhere and in our county, he switched parties too much. Tried to make a big fanfare about it. And then my experience through the recount, is as described here. He's put his thumb on the scale all the way through. And so it's they're so used to getting away with cheating down there. They really are not used to somebody challenging it. You ever see the show Dukes of Hazzard? Dukes of Hazzard was set. That whole notional script though was based on the chicanery down in South Texas and all of the all the illegal officials doing whatever they want. And so not all of them, but some of them. The famous Duke of Duval story actually got LBJ elected into his first term as senator. 14 years later, we had a VP and then a dead president. So I don't know. I mean, it does impact the nation. And so they're not used to people, kicking dust in their face and saying, hey, what gives? And so they've been, he included, and really, if you're born of that system, you sort of, you get used to corruption. Like you just make a home with it. And it's not right. And the good people of South Texas are absolutely tired of it because they are the poor for it. 20 years Henry Cuellar has been there. They're doing worse. And
Yeah.
so, he parades big cardboard checks around, but half of them don't cash. And it's just, it's really just a parade. So, it's Tano T Arena is built out of the same cloth. It just stinks. It all stinks. And so, if you keep on hiring the same people to represent you, you're going to keep getting your money pickpocketed out of your pocket. And you're going to
And
keep
in your
on making
opinion, why do you think he did that? Why do you think he basically slow walked it for 2 months and then out of nowhere switches parties and announces that he wants to run for your seats that you had just lost in 2024?
Right. Well, it's inverted. So, I guess mid challenge, he did announce, all of that is so that he can have a chance to run. And again, I'm sure to put his finger on the scale and make sure he gets elected. The highest official, who's in charge of the elections, then is on the ballot. I mean, I don't know, something may go wrong.
And Jay, sorry to interrupt you. Just can you tell me what just Judge Tano's experience is? Why he actually is a county judge? What is his experience in being a judge as a whole, and being a potential member of Congress?
Sure. The judge, he won, ran once, lost, ran again, won. Best I can tell, he was on a farm league for, a major baseball team, and did that out of a junior college experience, came home with that, and has been a professional baseball player ever since. Tano's best skill is he has lots of family that he has during his term put in throughout the Webb County government, and it's usually that key secretary that really holds the power, knows where all the skeletons are buried. And his other greatest power is he married in to a family that's one of the most wealthy families in the area and owns a ton of land there. And so Tano is a confluence of somebody who's willing to do whatever it takes, has a lot of family to help him, because that's the way it works. It's kind of mafioso style down there, unfortunately. Look, the current congressman, Henry Cuellar's brother, is the sheriff. They are a dynamic duo for dastardly deeds. Henry Cuellar's business partner, not in name, but what they call title holders, it is alleged to be LaBarbie, the infamous cartel boss. And so, look, it's an ugly place to do business, but it's a captured people who match our values. And I have always had a heart for these folks. I grew up going down there. I grew up going to Mexico through Laredo and hunting down in the area, and just, have fond memories. Every Texan, I think, who grew up in our great state has a brilliant relationship with Mexico. We've had our issues in the past, certainly, but we fought in the Alamo together to kick out the colonial overlords, the Tejanos and the Texians. It's the Mexican born and the Anglo born Texans. And so, but down in Laredo, there's just a long history of corruption that has held a chokehold on the folks, and Henry Cuellar is emblematic of that. And Tano is looking to take up that banner, and he's the same gangster with different gang colors.
Yeah.
No different. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that Laredo, Texas is obviously one of the most important port cities in the entire United States. So how do you think that with someone like Henry Cuellar, who's an obvious, excuse me for my language, but I'm going to call him a convict, okay? He's in prison, okay? If someone is running this congressional district, which is one of the most important in the entire United States, how will it affect the entire country, not just Texas?
Well, you nailed it right there. Laredo represents 40%, almost half of our inbound ports. It is the most important port in the country. That beats the port of LA, that beats the port of Philadelphia, that beats Norfolk. That is sea and land ports. So it is the lion's share of what's inbound commerce. Massive economic upside. And so, to Laredo. So if it's not rightly handled from the national to the local level, we're all in trouble. It's a single point failure, to use a military term. It could be, while it's the strongest link in the chain, it could be the weakest link in the chain, because it's a place where you could just sever quickly and hurt all of us, driving up prices. You would think with that sort of robust port, look at Philadelphia, look at LA. I mean, despite their Democrat-run hellholes now, but historically, these are great cities. Okay, so Laredo in South Texas, that represents such an important inbound commerce, should be similarly so, but it's being held down by LBJs on down to Henry Cuellar, who really just needed to keep the Democrat plantations, satiated enough with the crumbs from their own table that they're funding and giving in tax monies. So, they're doing the same thing with the black vote in inner cities. They're doing the same thing, but have done, since before LBJ, with the Hispanic vote down in South Texas. And it really breaks my heart. You're talking about the heart and soul of America. These are some of the greatest Americans you ever want to meet, the most patriotic Americans. I dare you to go to any South Texas cemetery and not count 24 massive standards of the American flag coming out of people's individual grave plots. I mean, the amount of veteran representation down there is just like mind-boggling, what we contribute to the nation's defense. And while they sit on this border, and if we lose the good people of South Texas to all this, all these shenanigans, we're going to cede a border. You can't. Now we're putting in a wall. It's good, and we need to do this as fast as we can. And we, God bless the Border Patrol. They haven't been able to do their job for 4 years, and they do a really good job when they're allowed to do it. We have to increase that defense, because this hybrid warfare concept that began with is really important to us. So, we're at total war right now. It's info war, legal war, currency war, but we have a very physical threat on the bottom. Now that Mexico has been co-opted from Mexico City on up, all of this nation's enemies used Mexico as a launching station, as a beachhead, if you will, into us. And so the Iranians are there, the Iranian threat network, the Russians are there, the Chinese are there, North Koreans are there. Everybody is there, being, muled, if you will, by the cartel. And they're now here. So we have ingested all these people, a lot of quiet cells right now, waiting for where this dust is going to settle to try to unwind us right at the most critical moment, which we're probably, is imminent here. What we're doing at the national level is important. I'm a huge Fourth Amendment person. Palantir is going out and just, understanding the problem better than really any of us could, with AI and really high-end computing and deep, the deepest data sets anybody has as the U.S. government. And that's good work, right? But, pretty soon here, we need to, pull back, the FISA court, permissions we've given that have really tamped down free expression and religion and all the rest of our taken for granted freedoms that we can't just sacrifice at the altar of security. Then the other side wins just by our own hand. Yeah. So, there's so much here. There's so much here. South Texas is really important to the nation. Obviously, if we're going to give 5 more votes and we can just get them out of one state, that's enough. Not as much as we'd like, but that's probably enough to really help with the fall session. Well, it won't help the fall session, but help the sessions after this happens. Interestingly, because he's under indictment and that trial is set for the 22nd of September, he's had it moved twice. He was trying to get the physical location, the venue moved to Laredo, laughably, out of Houston. But that looks like it's going to go. And Senator Menendez and his charges are not a lot different. Instead of gold bars, there's more of an elaborate scheme to pay his wife, for doing work on behalf of the Azerbaijani government and Mexico. So that's a whole other story that I can get into about.
Could you please? Can we look at what happened with Mexico, for instance, in the Aztec Bank, and then in Azerbaijan, something very similar, wherein they established shell companies, Cuellar and his wife, and then through these weird consulting contracts wherein there was no work really done. That's what's being alleged by the DOJ. They sent in monthly payments, just recurring for 7 years, to the couple. And at the same time, it's like a quid pro quo, because then they started doing things in the interests of their benefactors. Cuellar, he's one of the most supportive members of Congress towards the Azerbaijani government, despite the fact that about this, they have committed an ethnic cleansing in Nagorno-Karabakh, pushing out 120,000 Christian Armenians and desecrating cemeteries, monasteries, a lot of important churches that go back like 3 millennia. So that's insane. And he's running defense for them in Congress, changing wording, helping basically the daughter of diplomats get visas renewed into the country. So all this dirty work. And then for the bank, helping the banks in Mexico basically change American regulations to basically make it easier for payday loans to be given to people that could be easily exploited.
Yeah.
So, are you concerned about the foreign influence in the United States, especially in your own district, in the way in which it's hurting the American people? And how do you propose just fighting it in general from all prongs?
Yeah, I love that. You really did a great summary there. It's a huge problem. It's when most Americans are appropriately focused on America and they hear things overseas and like, okay, I don't know, and they don't really follow those stories. It's incredibly important. It's so important. That's the new form of warfare. Corrupt foreign influence, which has always been a thing even in this nation, but it's getting to a level now where if you own a White House, or if you own members of Congress, and you are the nation's enemy, or your benefit, helps your country and not America's, well, then yes, that's definitionally treasonous, and undermines, Americans who are inwardly focused, and so it's really important. Yeah, you kind of nailed it there, even down to the region, and it's tragic. I mean, Armenia is one of the oldest Christian countries in the world, and just to the east of Turkey. It went through a massive genocide with Turkey historically, and the world was silent about it, and then with Azerbaijan recently, in the last 2 decades, have been ethnically cleansed out of their historic region and out of their country because they decided they wanted it. Might makes right, and so and it turns out Azerbaijan has a ton of oil money. It's a 100% Muslim country. They have a state-owned oil company, and that's who is transacting with Henry Cuellar and his wife. He's become a huge advocate of them, and really they represent everything illiberal, meaning everything anti-Western. In the administration of their own country, and paying bribes is just part of doing business for them. Well, we don't do that, and we definitely don't do that for American politicians. And yes, he has been absolutely shilling. He's one of the biggest advocates for Azerbaijani causes. Takes school trips. He's a sometimes professor of a university, and takes school trips there. Does delegations, congressional delegations there, which they pay for everything. But yeah, his wife, who somehow, who had some county level, accounting job, was somehow qualified on geopolitical issues, but the real work that was getting done is what Henry Cuellar is doing in Congress, and to influence foreign bodies, the international community in The Hague and other places, so they could keep the heat off of Azerbaijan for ethnic cleansing the Christian Armenians out of their territory. Mexico, I think one of the most egregious ways to tie up that, or to wrap that in an understanding bow, if you will, is that they were lobbying. They paid, again, Imelda Cuellar, Henry's wife, who has as many indictments as Henry does, but should note, to really they wanted the remittance tax lowered. Remittances are Mexico's biggest economy. And what those are people that are working in the United States. They send back money home to support their families. Mexico's been doing it forever. It's an important economy. And we need workers here. We need them here legal and documented, and we need them where we want them and when we want them. Very important to both countries. And so we need that labor, but we got to do it right so it keeps Americans safe. But there's so much illegal people in that mix of people that when they send home Western Union monies, these are people bringing their kids to our schools. They're going into our emergency rooms. So the remittance tax, lobbying to lower the remittance tax, lowers the amount we can capture from largely an illegal population, or a very large number of legal population that aren't paying into the system and are only receiving from the system. And so it makes sense to have a higher capture of that right now. And then we got to fix our immigration problem. And then at that point, we can go, okay, let's do this correctly, we will capture taxes through other ways so that we can pay for the burden that they are in our country, so we can afford the country, so we can have a place that people want to come. So Henry lobbied to lower that tax, which effectively takes jobs and wages from his constituents, the legal ones, because it gives those illegals, a unfair competitive advantage against the legal workers. Because businesses are incentivized to hire the illegal ones, et cetera. So the economic chain, continues. That's just what is in the DOJ indictment, and there's so much more that people are accustomed to hearing about down in South Texas about Henry. But it's enough, and they even removed the FORA, the foreign representation of a foreign country in our own charges, because that's a much higher burden of proof. But the DOJ is keen, I think, this is the way I'm interpreting it, to get a quick conviction here for bribery, for money laundering, which there's plenty there. Finally we got this guy, and if that happens, and I anticipate he's going to plea out somehow. And bow out, but maybe not. It's in the Democrat caucus coalition's interest to keep this trial alive as long as they can. There's the fall session, the spring session, that they really need Henry's vote to give the Republicans hell. So we'll see what happens. It's fascinating. The glass palace, as it were, in Laredo will start to crumble if we do get an indictment on this. And make no mistake, the DOJ always gets their man, one way or another. I mean, they have a 98% conviction rate. So they don't build the case unless they know it's an absolute home run. So lots to talk about here in South Texas, gentlemen. That really matters to absolutely everyone. It's the border, obviously, and if the border is insecure and being profited off of, well, then it's making all of us extremely vulnerable. And Henry Cuellar is a plank owner of Biden's border. He's voted 95% in alignment with the Biden White House in Congress. And that's an actual 2022 statistic, and it's an important one because he tries to caption himself as the conservative Democrat, and his heir apparent predecessor, at which point that comes, that he's hand selected to carry on the baton for him, the same way. And so it's just a well-paid window dressing because he's as treacherous and as liberal as they come.
Yeah, and we don't want to take up too much of your time. We already took up a few, more than an hour, but we wanted to ask you one final question, which is what happens next? What can we do to help you to spread your message, to get justice for the people who got hurt in this election in South Texas?
Yeah. So, what happened to me in the election challenge is really important that we do talk about it. If we don't have honest elections, we don't have a country. Not one of us would like to live in. And again, it doesn't matter your politics. And so we have to lean into that. We have to have honest election integrity efforts that really opens up. So I'm fully behind the president's efforts on hand counted paper ballots, one election day. Let's do. If we can send men to the moon, if we can, do nanotechnology, we could figure out elections. Many other countries do it. It's just the Democrats and the establishment, really a status quo party that has DC, money till pointed at them with their corruption and anti-competitive gerrymandering, if you will. You really don't want it to go away because that's how they keep themselves in power. It's truly not in the American interest. But in the dens of our greatest cities, they're able to cheat. And Laredo, Texas, is no different. A long history of it. So I would say get involved now in election integrity. And why do these companies, these election system companies, have such a chokehold on us? How can Dominion systems sue people for asking, hey, open the box? I mean, seriously, we're broken. And we have to figure that out and mean it this time. Bottom line, we have to shift power down from DC back to the state houses so people can ride herd, if you will, or be more accountable. And you're closer to the solutions deployed for problems you have locally. You'll know them better, locally. DC is just a big money laundering scheme. I can tell you when I did work or I was seconded once to the UN. That was crazy in Africa, and in lots of international groups. It's a pin on the map for most people. Like, oh, I'm doing good. I gave money, or America did that through the UN or whatever. But really, there's not a more corrupt. Just as a symbol of that, there's not a more corrupt organization in the entire world than the UN.
Yeah.
They are at Snoop Dogg level, like, making it rain. And I tell you, the stories I have from that are just mind spinning. And especially when, we pay 90% of the UN bill, they're sitting on our property in New York. So, and they hate us. They hate us at an institutional level. It's really hard for an American to be inside that globalist cabal, if you will. And so we set this up a long time ago to be really the meeting point to air global grievances. It's turned out to be a meeting point to point against the United States. Irony of ironies.
Thank you, Commander Furman. And before we finish off, can you just let the audience know where they can find you in your campaign?
Love it. So I'm at jfurman.com or commanderfurman.com. My last name is spelled Furman. I'm a retired Navy commander, but the title is still mine to use, and we feel like that expresses who I am. I'm also, my handles are at Commander Furman on Twitter and Facebook and the rest of them. So yeah, come hit us up. We need your help. We need everybody involved. We cannot take off our packs, as we would say in the military at this moment. We have to all get in a kind of wedge up the middle maneuver up around the president so we can score on touchdown with him. If we don't do that in these next 12 months, we're toast. We will turn over on downs. We'll give this back to the Democrats. We'll not have enough of a majority to actually get stuff done. We have this moment in time. We have Trump for a little more than 3 more years. Let's just call it 3 years, right? That's all we've got. And if we don't give him the firepower he needs in Congress, and that, because Congress represents us, the House of Representatives is the people's body.
Yeah.
And so it's incredibly important that we get involved now, not just, every 4 years in, October, November. Absolutely why we're in this situation. I blame us and I blame you, America. You've allowed this to happen. Now they're very, sophisticated on how they pull the rug out from under us, but it is because we're not an informed and active population. That's the only way this thing will continue, this thing being America, for your grandkids. And if we are that every day, then human nature will do what human nature does. And we are the big check and the big balance. And that's how that works. So help me do that. Send me to Congress, and I will be your voice. I'm going to invert this elite model and be accountable to all 770,000 of my constituents. And by the way, every congressional seat matters. I hear all day long when I talk to people like, oh, that's not my district, my area of the world. No, there's 435 votes there. You have a certain number of ones that represent your values, and you have a certain number that don't, and you need to up the former. All right. Full stop. It's simple. It's a national body. So it's just, you can't just look at it. That's not my congressman. That's not a sufficient or satisfying answer that helps any of us.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jay. It was wonderful having you on.
All right.
Thank you.